I acquired this block plane. I wanted one that had a more sophisticated blade adjustment mechanism, because the biggest problem I have with these cheapo planes is to get the iron just right. There's an awful lot of tapping and adjustment and subtle movements just to get it to sit right. It appears to be in very good shape, really just needing probably a cleaning. Looks like I have the obligatory white paint splatter on it. My theory is planes actually spawn this white paint. Yeah, this is just going to need a cleaning and a sharpening. It says England. Well, I got most of the paint off. I think I took a fair amount of the shine off. This is made of plastic. You can see a little casting mark on it. I just washed this with soapy water, and the japanning is in good shape. There's a little chip on the housing right here. Little lip of the cast iron is gone, and there's a little bit of overspray in here and back here. I'm going to try to gently remove, and other than that, it looks really pretty good. Just spent about a half hour or so cleaning everything up. Gave it all a warm, soapy hot water bath using a nylon brush. The nooks and crannies I used a toothpick, and it's looking pretty good. For the paint splatter, I discovered a little bit of paint thinner, softened it a little, and then a little bit of abrasion with a wooden toothpick seemed to get most of it off. There's remnants of it here and there, but it looks pretty good. Same thing with the lever cap. About the only areas that are really worn in terms of the finish is the back of the lever cap here. But other than that, it looks in really good shape. The nickel plated or chromed pieces had a little bit of orange on it that cleaned up with just a teeny bit of steel wool here and stuff, so they're looking pretty good. And this piece, same thing, the nickel plated cleaned up with some steel wool. I used a brass brush on this piece that I think is brass. Didn't want to take the patina off it, but that looks clean. And the plastic knob I cleaned up a little bit more, with a little abrasion, a little paint thinner, rubbing with a toothpick and my fingernail. And this screw, just a little steel wool and soft brushing. And the iron is in good shape. A little discoloration that doesn't bother me. I rubbed it a little bit to clean it up a little. I don't think this has ever really been formally dressed, but I'm just going to sharpen that up. Wanted to make sure this edge was flat, and it's looking pretty good. I just lightly sanded it by elevating the heel a little bit. And now, unfortunately, that I'm satisfied with its quality, I'm going to have to touch it up. The blade is pretty dull. Got a little bit of nicking on the tip, but it seems to be square. And seems to be close to a 25-degree bevel, so that's all good news. It's getting polished in this area and not so much on the edges, so this doesn't seem terribly flat on the underside. I'm not sure this area was ever lapped. You can still see the fly cutter mark on it. This corner here I haven't hit yet, this corner here I haven't hit, and there's a hollow in here I haven't hit, and in here. I've been lapping the back for about an hour, and there's a little corner right up here that I can show you, right about the part under my thumbnail. I can't quite get the same level of polish as the rest of it, and I think this corner is just too far sunk in compared to the plane of the back, and I think I'm going to have to call this a day. I will do a back grind, lifting it a little bit, and maybe that'll get rid of it. Other than that, I think we're just going to have to live with it. Well, it took me about an hour to mill and lap the back flat. It's not a mirror finish, but it's pretty shiny. I used diamond stones. I also have a whetstone, and I used sandpaper. It was an awful lot of lapping. This corner here, I'm still not quite sure. I made it all the way to the very corner, but I'm going to call it a day on that one. And then, of course, I polished up this edge. It's now, razor sharp. In my experience, I can't tell you how many of these used planes I've picked up only to find out that the back is not flat. So whoever had prepped the iron, whoever owned it before me, never took the time to properly get it to the point where you can easily sharpen it. Just put an ordinary coat of black paint on this. I did it with a brush. Wasn't trying to get the whole thing, just to kind of randomly touch it up a little bit. Just oil-based paint. I'm going to try to even out the sheen, a little very fine steel wool. And there we have it. Looking better than it did. Probably put a coat of wax on it, get a little bit of the shine back, and it looks used, worn, but in decent shape. Here it is, assembled and ready to check the bottom for flatness. I just ran it a little bit for a flat surface, and it's not looking very flat. Looks like I got high spots on the back of the mouth and over here and over here. And so far this plane hasn't been very well tuned, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if this has never been flattened. So far I think I've just been taking the dirt off. Well, here it is. I took a little time to flatten the sole and the sides. The sides aren't very flat, so I cleaned it up with a little sandpaper. Coat of wax on everything. I think it looks pretty good. My goal is for this to just be a user plane in the shop, so I'm not trying to make it look too fancy schmancy or spend a lot of time on it. I'm hoping it's going to replace this plane that I've used for many years with good success. The trouble with these really cheap limited use planes is adjusting the iron to get it perfect. It's a lot of loosening it and tapping and adjusting, and it just takes quite a while to get the iron just where you want it. And I'm hoping that this plane with the more sophisticated adjustment mechanisms will just be that much easier to use. Planing a piece of poplar. So it's cutting a little heavier on this side. I need to lower the blade on this side, and the lateral adjustment mechanism is here. And that's a pretty good strip. I'm going to try to pull the blade back a little bit by unscrewing it just a teeny bit. Still cutting a little heavy. I'll pull it back a little more. That's pretty good for a block plane. Well, it's been a month or so, and I'm pleased to say I've had the occasion to use this a few times, and it's working well. Works about as well as my other planes, and it is delightfully easy to set the iron to just where you want it. And I don't know if it's showing up, but it says there G12-220. So this is a model 220 plane. I saw on Amazon that you can buy a brand new version of this plane for about $30. And I think that kind of sums it up. Anything that you pay $30 for like this, it's going to take a lot of work to really get it to sing well. I bought this used, so I paid less. And always when I buy a used plane, I always hope and pray that some owner before me had done all the work that I had shown you guys how to do. Touch up the iron, clean it up, wax it, oil it up, etc. Unfortunately, I find that that's more the exception than the rule. So lately, I have been more attracted to planes that look like they are well worn. It does not have a throat adjustment like this Lee-Nielsen does. If you loosen this up, you can adjust the size of the mouth. And I find from using this, I rarely adjust the size of the mouth, but I do spend time trying to get the iron exactly where I want it, especially if you have to disassemble and sharpen it. This whole project took me several hours over the course of many days, and to be honest, I wish it was work I didn't have to do. The good news is once you do the work, it's just a matter of keeping the iron sharp, keeping the plane clean and oiled, and you're good to go. You know, it's a little sad to think that this very plane may have been purchased by somebody who never got it to work very well, and out of frustration he just set it aside, never touched it again. For those of you out there, if you don't want to put that kind of time commitment into a plane and you do want to get it to work well, just realize that even a low-end plane, a very simple plane, will work very well if the iron is very sharp. So instead of tuning up the entire plane, if you just get the iron razor sharp, it'll perform pretty well. A good sharp iron is probably 90% of getting a plane to work well. And if you don't want to put any work into it at all, you can always get a high-end plane like this in the Lee-Nielsen here. These guys run the better part of $200 these days. And there are plenty of planes that are between the really low-end simple ones and a higher-end plane like this. And I can't really vouch for what kind of value they may be. Well, if you're a first-timer or return viewer, I thank you for coming by. I enjoy sharing the few things that I know in the hope that I might help some of you out there that have similar challenges. Feel free to leave a comment. I love to read them. And don't be afraid to like and subscribe. Farewell for now, and I look forward to sharing the next one.